Before we get into today's video, let me quickly tell you what this one is actually about, because it might be one of the most useful 10 minutes you spend on your finances all year. We're talking about your paycheck specifically, the exact routine you should follow every single time money lands in your account, so that instead of it disappearing without explanation, it starts building real, lasting wealth. I'm going to walk you through every important piece of this system, step by step. How to figure out what you truly need to survive versus what just feels necessary. Why protecting your credit score has to happen before anything fun. How big your emergency fund should actually be and where to keep it. How to capture free money through employer retirement matching. The 2 proven methods for wiping out debt for good. And finally, the 1 habit automation that ties this entire system together and makes it work even on the days you have zero motivation. Every single one of these points matters, so I genuinely encourage you to watch this all the way through rather than skipping around. And if content like this is useful to you, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who could use it, and subscribe with notifications turned on so the next video lands right in front of you the moment it's out. All right, let's get into it. There's a window of about 15 seconds right after your salary lands in your account where your brain quietly decides how the rest of your month is going to go. You glance at the number, and before you've even had breakfast, some part of your mind has already started planning a takeout order, a new pair of shoes, or that gadget you've been eyeing for weeks. It happens so fast, you don't even notice it happening. And that 15-second window is exactly why so many people who earn a perfectly decent income still feel broke every single month. It isn't about how much you make. It's about what happens in the minutes, hours, and days after the money shows up. Today, I want to walk you through a complete routine, a system you can literally copy and use every time you get paid that flips this whole process around. Instead of your paycheck controlling you, you start controlling it. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why some people manage to build real wealth on an average salary, while others earning twice as much stay stuck living payment to payment. If you've ever finished a month wondering where your money actually went, stick with me, because we're about to fix that for good. Before we get into the routine itself, I want you to think about how differently the same paycheck gets treated by 2 different people. Person A gets paid, feels a rush of relief, and starts mentally spending the money before it's even settled dinner out tonight, that order sitting in an online cart, maybe finally booking that trip. Person B gets paid, and almost nothing visibly happens. No celebration, no spree, just a quiet series of transfers that already have somewhere specific to go. 5 years later, Person A is still waiting for the right time to start saving seriously, still explaining away why this particular month was an exception. Person B has an emergency fund, a growing retirement account, and a level of calm around money that Person A assumes must come from earning more. It almost never does. It comes from the routine, not the income. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Most people have no real idea what happens to their income after it arrives. They know the rent gets covered somehow. They know groceries appear in the fridge. They know the subscriptions renew themselves without much thought. But beyond that, it's a blur. Money comes in, and a few weeks later, it's simply gone, and nobody can quite explain where. This isn't because these people are irresponsible or bad with numbers. It's because nobody ever taught them a structure. They were taught how to earn money, but never how to direct it once it arrived. Here's the shift that changes everything. Successful money management isn't about tracking every latte you buy or feeling guilty about small purchases. It's about having an intentional first move, a routine that happens automatically, the same way every time, regardless of how tired, stressed, or busy you are. Willpower is unreliable. Systems are not. And that's the whole idea behind what I'm about to walk you through. Step 1, and this is the foundation everything else sits on, figure out exactly what percentage of your take-home pay goes toward things you cannot live without. Not things that feel important, not things that make life more comfortable. Things you genuinely cannot function without: housing, basic groceries, transportation to get to work, essential utilities, insurance, and healthcare. That's it. Your streaming subscriptions, your daily coffee run, your gym membership you keep meaning to use, none of that belongs in this category, no matter how essential it feels in the moment. Here's where almost everyone stumbles. People look at their spending and start convincing themselves that everything is necessary. The car payment on a vehicle nicer than they need becomes essential transportation. The 3 weekly restaurant visits become necessary time with friends. The subscription boxes become self-care. None of this is a moral failing, it's just human nature to rationalize spending we enjoy. But if you want an honest financial picture, you have to separate what keeps you alive and employed from what simply makes life more pleasant. A rough benchmark worth knowing: if your true necessities are eating up more than about 60% of what you bring home after taxes, something needs attention. Either your cost of living is too high for your current income, or some of what you're calling a necessity is actually a preference in disguise. Let's put a number on this so it's not abstract. Imagine someone bringing home around $4,500 a month after taxes. Rent takes $1,700. A car payment takes $350. Groceries and basic utilities take another $550. That's $2,500, which comes out to roughly 55% of their income. Reasonable, especially depending on where they live. But this same person might feel like they're drowning financially, and the reason is usually everything sitting outside that core number: the food delivery apps, the impulse online orders, the memberships nobody remembers signing up for. Those things aren't necessities. They're choices. And once you can see the difference clearly, you finally know how much money you genuinely have available to build something with. It helps to actually sit down for 20 minutes with your last 2 or 3 months of bank statements and sort every single transaction into one of 2 piles. Would this stop my life from functioning if it disappeared? Or would this just be less enjoyable if it disappeared? Be ruthless about it. Your phone plan is probably a necessity. The premium unlimited version with 3 add-ons you never use is not the basic plan, is the necessity. The upgrade is a preference. Groceries are a necessity. The takeout order you get because you didn't feel like cooking is not, no matter how tired you were that evening. This exercise is uncomfortable the first time you do it, because it forces you to see spending patterns you'd rather not examine too closely. But it's also incredibly clarifying, because most people walk away from it surprised by how much of their necessary spending was actually optional the whole time. Step 2 happens before a single dollar goes toward anything fun. Make sure every debt obligation gets its minimum payment, on time, without exception. I'm not talking about aggressively wiping out debt in this step that comes later. I'm talking about protecting something that quietly controls a huge portion of your financial life: your credit profile. Your payment history is the single biggest factor in your credit score, and the margin for error is smaller than most people realize. Pay 99% of your bills on time, and your score holds up fine. Slip to 97% on-time payments, and your score can drop sharply. Think about that for a second. In almost any other area of life, 97% would be considered excellent. In the world of credit, it's treated as a warning sign. This step isn't exciting. It won't make you feel like you're building wealth. But skipping it can undo years of good financial decisions in a matter of months, through higher interest rates, denied loan applications, and fees that pile up quietly in the background. Step 3 is the one most people avoid thinking about until the exact moment they desperately need it: your emergency fund. I know the phrase alone sounds boring. Nobody dreams about their savings account. But this single habit is what separates people who handle a crisis calmly from people whose entire financial life collapses the moment something goes wrong. And something will go wrong eventually. That's not pessimism. That's just how life works. The car breaks down at the worst possible time. A device dies right before you need it for something important. A medical bill shows up out of nowhere. An emergency fund exists so that if one of these moments happens, it becomes an inconvenience instead of a full-blown financial disaster. The general target is somewhere between 3 and 6 months of your core living expenses. Sitting in an account you can access immediately, not locked away. Not invested somewhere it could lose value right when you need it most. Going back to our earlier example, if that person's essential monthly costs are $2,500, their emergency fund target would land somewhere between $7,500 and $15,000. That number might sound overwhelming if you're starting from zero, and that's completely fine. Nobody builds this in a single month. The goal isn't to hit the number instantly. The goal is to consistently move toward it until it's simply there, quietly protecting you in the background. What almost nobody tells you about an emergency fund is that its real value isn't financial, it's psychological. When you know you have several months of expenses sitting safely available, something shifts in how you experience daily life. You stop feeling that low hum of anxiety every time an unexpected bill shows up. You walk into work meetings with a different kind of confidence, because even if something changed with your job tomorrow, you wouldn't be in immediate crisis. That peace of mind is worth more than whatever extra interest you might have earned by investing that money instead. This fund isn't meant to grow aggressively. It's meant to sit there, boring and stable, ready the moment you need it. A lot of people ask whether they should build this fund all at once or in stages, and honestly, staging it is usually the more realistic approach. A common way to do this is to set an initial mini goal, say, 1 month of essential expenses before worrying about the full 3 to 6 month target. That first month's worth of savings absorbs the vast majority of everyday emergencies: a flat tire, a broken phone screen, an unexpected co-pay at the doctor. Once that smaller cushion exists, you can keep building toward the fuller target at a steady pace, without the whole goal feeling so distant that it stops feeling real. And once you hit that full target, you don't need to keep adding to it indefinitely at that point. Any extra money you were putting toward the emergency fund can get redirected toward the next steps in this routine, which is exactly where we're headed next. Once that emergency fund exists, you've crossed a real threshold. You're no longer in financial survival mode, you've entered wealth-building mode. And this is where things start to get genuinely exciting. Because step 4 is where your money starts working for you instead of the other way around. If your employer offers any kind of retirement matching program, this is where your investing priority should start, before almost anything else. Picture this scenario. Your employer offers to match a portion of whatever you personally contribute to a retirement account. If you don't participate, you are quite literally leaving free money on the table, money that was part of your compensation package that you're simply choosing not to collect. Let's say your company matches 3% of your salary, and you earn $60,000 a year. If you contribute $1,800 annually, your employer adds another $1,800. That's an instant 100% return before your investments have even had a chance to grow. There is no other investment on earth that reliably guarantees that kind of immediate return. Beyond capturing that match, a common target is putting around 10% of your gross income toward retirement over time. That might sound like a stretch when you're just getting started, and if it is, start smaller and build up. What matters more than the exact percentage is starting the habit early, because time does something remarkable to money that's invested consistently. Consider this. Someone who starts investing $300 a month at age 25, earning an average annual return around 8%, could realistically end up with somewhere close to $1 million by retirement age. Someone who waits until 35 to start the exact same monthly investment might end up with less than half that amount. That 10-year delay doesn't just cost 10 years, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost growth. Because compound growth needs time far more than it needs large amounts of money. And here's something worth hearing clearly. You do not need a complicated strategy to make this work. So many people delay investing for months or years because they're overwhelmed trying to find the perfect fund, the perfect stock pick, the perfect timing. For the vast majority of people, a simple, low-cost, diversified fund that tracks the broader market is more than enough. You don't need to outsmart professional investors. You need to start, stay consistent, and let time do the heavy lifting. Step 5 is tackling any remaining debt that isn't your mortgage once your retirement contributions are moving on autopilot. This is often the most emotionally loaded part of the whole process because debt frequently comes attached to memories a rough financial period, an emergency that had to go on a card, a decision made with less financial knowledge than you have now. There are two well-known approaches here, and both genuinely work if you actually follow through with one of them. The first is often called the Avalanche approach. You attack whichever debt carries the highest interest rate first, while making minimum payments on everything else. Mathematically, this saves you the most money over time, because you're eliminating the most expensive debt first. The second approach, often called the Snowball approach, has you pay off your smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. It's not the mathematically optimal choice, but it tends to build momentum quickly, because you see entire debts disappear sooner, which keeps motivation high. Personally, I lean toward the Snowball approach for most people, simply because managing money successfully is often more about psychology than it is about spreadsheets. If seeing quick wins keeps you engaged and consistent, that consistency is worth more than the extra few dollars you might save with a stricter mathematical approach. The method matters far less than actually picking one and sticking with it until it's done. One more thing worth mentioning here. As you pay off each debt, resist the temptation to let that freed up payment quietly dissolve into your everyday spending. This is one of the most common places where people lose momentum without even realizing it. Say you were paying $200 a month toward a credit card, and it's finally gone. If that $200 just blends back into your regular checking account with no destination, it tends to vanish into small, forgettable purchases over the following weeks. Instead, the moment a debt is paid off, redirect that exact amount toward the next debt on your list, or, if you're already debt-free, straight into your investment accounts. This is actually where the snowball gets its name. Each payment you free up gets rolled directly into the next target, so your total monthly debt payoff amount stays the same even as individual debts disappear one by one, which makes each subsequent debt fall faster than the one before it. Once your employer match is secured and your non-mortgage debt is under control, you can start looking at additional ways to invest either through your own retirement account outside of work or through a standard taxable investment account. A tax-advantaged retirement account, the kind where you pay tax on your contributions now but owe nothing on the growth later, is particularly powerful because every dollar of growth over decades ends up being entirely yours. Contribution limits shift slightly year to year, so it's worth checking current numbers when you set this up, But the underlying idea stays the same. Pay tax once, upfront, and let everything after that grow untouched. For money you invest outside of retirement accounts, the tax picture works a little differently. When you eventually sell an investment for a profit, you'll owe capital gains tax. And how long you held that investment matters a lot. Hold it for more than a year, and you typically qualify for a lower long-term tax rate. Sell it within a year, and any profit gets taxed at your regular income rate, which is usually higher. This is a big part of why people who build serious long-term wealth tend to think in years and decades rather than days and weeks. They aren't trying to catch short-term swings in the market. They're building slowly, letting time work in their favor, and keeping more of what they earn by being patient with it. Now we arrive at the step that ties this entire routine together, and honestly, it's the step that determines whether any of this actually happens consistently or just stays a nice idea you meant to start someday. Automation. Here's the problem with relying on willpower alone. Motivation isn't a stable resource. You might feel completely committed to managing your money perfectly on a Monday morning, full of energy and good intentions. By Thursday evening, after a long week, that same motivation has quietly evaporated, and moving money into savings feels like one more chore you'll get to eventually. Except eventually rarely comes, because next week you'll likely be just as tired, if not more. This is exactly why automation matters so much. When your money moves according to a plan without requiring a decision from you in that moment, you remove emotion, fatigue, and procrastination from the equation entirely. The system works whether you're feeling disciplined or completely burned out, and that consistency is what actually builds wealth over time, not occasional bursts of motivation. Here's a simple version of how this can work in practice. Let your paycheck sit for a day after it lands, just to be sure everything has fully cleared. Then, set up automatic transfers that happen without you lifting a finger, a set amount moving into savings, a portion heading toward your emergency fund until it's fully built, another portion flowing into your retirement or investment accounts. And if you're self-employed, a separate portion set aside specifically for taxes. Once this is in place, you never have to remember to do it. You never have to talk yourself into it on a day when you'd rather spend that money on something else. It simply happens, the same way your rent or your phone bill happens, quietly and reliably in the background. But here's where a lot of people accidentally sabotage a perfectly good automated system. They set it up once and then never touch it again, even as their life changes. They get a raise, but keep saving the exact same dollar amount instead of increasing it. They finally pay off a loan, but forget to redirect that freed up payment toward investing instead of letting it quietly get absorbed into everyday spending. A good system isn't something you build once and forget forever. It's something you check in on every so often and adjust as your income and goals evolve. A simple fix for this is to schedule a short check-in with yourself every few months, 15 minutes. Nothing elaborate where you look at your automated transfers and ask 3 questions. Has my income changed since I last set these amounts? Has any of my debt changed? Am I still on track toward my emergency fund and retirement targets, or has one of them quietly fallen behind? This tiny recurring habit is what keeps an automated system honest over time, instead of letting it slowly drift out of sync with your actual life. Some people like to do this every time their birthday comes around, others tie it to the start of a new year, and others just do it whenever they get a raise or a new job. The specific timing matters far less than simply having a recurring checkpoint at all, because without one, even a perfectly built system can quietly become outdated within a year or two. It's also worth saying that this entire routine doesn't need to be perfect from day one. Maybe right now you can only automate a small percentage into savings because your necessities are eating up most of your income. That's completely fine. The goal isn't to execute every step flawlessly starting this month. The goal is to build the skeleton of the system now, even in a small, imperfect form, and let it grow stronger as your income grows, as your debts shrink, and as your expenses become more predictable. A small automated system that actually runs every month will always outperform a perfect system that only exists in your head. None of what we just covered is flashy. There's no secret trick, no risky bet, no overnight transformation. It's a sequence. Know your true necessities, protect your credit with on-time payments, build a safety net, capture free money through employer matching, chip away at debt with a method you'll actually stick to, invest consistently for the long term, and automate the entire process so it runs whether you're motivated or not. It's simple enough to explain in a few minutes, and it's exactly why so few people actually follow it all the way through. Simple isn't the same as easy. And consistency beats intensity every single time. If you put this routine in place and let it run quietly in the background of your life, something interesting happens over the following months and years. You stop thinking about money with anxiety and start thinking about it with a kind of calm confidence, because you know exactly where every dollar is going and why. That shift, more than any single investment or any one smart decision, is what actually changes your financial trajectory over time. Start wherever you are right now, even if it's small. The system matters far more than the starting amount, and 5 years from now, you'll be glad you built it today instead of waiting for a better moment that was never going to arrive on its own.